Hello everyone, this is Dream Big Budgets. My name is Natalie, and today we will be doing another installment in our Motherhood Struggle series, which is the hashtag I Am movement. I haven't posted anything on this for a minute now, but today I wanted to talk about my not pregnancy experience, but my delivery experience, because I talked about my trimesters and how they went, and I thought to bring it full circle, I would talk about how the actual delivery was for me. I don't think it was super exciting, but I know some of the stories out there can help other women either be prepared or know that they're not alone in their struggle or not. So I thought this would be a good topic to talk about today. So for me, I was at 40 weeks and 2 days when I had my induction scheduled, because my doctor didn't want to wait any longer because I was dealing with the gestational diabetes and he didn't want her to get too big, and she wasn't showing any signs that she wanted to come out. So we had the induction scheduled, and we went in on a Sunday night. I think we went in at about 8 or 9 or 10. I can't remember exactly. But we went in that night, got settled in, and then they started giving me Pitocin, and I didn't really have any symptoms, and I already knew I wanted an epidural, right? So it wasn't a discussion there. We had already decided. Well, I had already decided. So they did the Pitocin. Nothing was really happening that night. Like, I had some contractions and things like that, but nothing major. And then the next day, on Monday, we started getting a little bit more, right? Like, I wouldn't dilate a lot, so they kept waiting. And I can't even remember, I think it was around noon, a doctor came in and manually broke my water, because that wasn't happening either. And once that happened, things really started amping up. And in the meantime, while he was over there breaking my water, they had already called for somebody to come in and give me the epidural, because they knew once the water was broken, things are going to start moving a lot faster. So once the water was broken, which was very uncomfortable, but once that was done, yeah, things really started happening, and the pain just it was a completely different level. So by the time the person that did the epidural came in, I was so ready to just not feel any of it anymore. So they did the epidural. It wasn't too bad. I'm usually not a huge fan of needles or anything like that, but I couldn't see it. So I just sat on the bed, and we did have a moment where I told him, because I wasn't supposed to move, and I didn't, but I did tell him that I was starting to feel really uncomfortable and a pain towards like the back and my legs, my upper thighs. So he's like, oh, okay, so I'm probably just putting the liquid in too quickly, so I'll slow down. And that was the only issue we had with the epidural. And once he started slowing down on that feeling went away and everything was fine. And then I just laid back down. My husband was with me the entire time I was there. So from the moment we went in, we got lucky enough to be in a position where he could be with me. Like, this was 2020, but it was September, so things had lightened up a little bit to where you can have people in there with you. The only thing was, if he left, because he could leave and come back, but it needed to be before 8 p.m. or otherwise he would have been able to come in back at 8 a.m. But he never left. We had snacks with us and everything like that, and plus the hospital did provide meals for him since I couldn't eat. So we did have snacks for our nurses and things like that. We had some chocolates, and they were super happy with it, and it was kind of cute. It was cute because they were so excited over some chocolates, and they were all super nice. And he had a bed in there, like a fold up bed, and in the delivery room. So that was nice because then he didn't have to be stranded in a chair. So he got to be a little bit more comfortable and actually sleep. And I did sleep too. But then by the time we got to around 5 or 6, I started feeling again. And I looked over because the machine was beeping, and a nurse came in, and she's like, "Oh, your bag from the epidural is done, so we need to switch it." They took too long, and I started getting feeling back in my legs and started feeling the contractions and everything else. And by the time the guy came in to switch it, he was super rude. Like, he was the only rude person there. And at that point, I was so done because I was feeling like it was way more intense than what I had felt previously that day. So I was not having any of that. I was just like, yeah, just change the bag and go. But other than him, everybody else was amazing. And so the changing of the bag didn't do anything because at that point it was already too late. I had my feeling back, so the epidural it was just done. And then the nurses came back in and said that my temperature is rising, so I had a fever, and so did Freya, because, I mean, she was basically cooking in there. And they said, we're going to have you start pushing soon, and if that's not working, we're going to do a C-section. So at that point, I was like, yeah, no, I don't want a C-section because I don't want to have to deal with recovering from a surgery after just having a baby. So I just started going hard on breathing and making sure that, because at that point I was 9 something dilated, and so I wasn't fully there. So they were trying to get me there with breathing, and they turned me on the bed so I could rock back and forth. And then the nurses came in and started instructing me to push, which that's why I think the epidural running out was a blessing in disguise, even though it hurt. But I knew exactly when to push. I didn't have to look at the machine telling me when my contractions were happening. I felt it, so I knew when to push and to repeat that process over and over again. So it took maybe 30-40 minutes in total to push her out, but it felt like forever. The thing was too, they had me pushing, and we were still waiting on the doctor. I'm assuming she was in a different delivery room, so we were waiting on her, but they wanted me to start that process of pushing until she got there. And at some point, maybe 20 minutes after I started pushing, they were like, okay, you need to stop. Worst feeling ever, when you have the instinct to push and they tell you to stop, so you just have to sit there and breathe through all the contractions because they wanted the doctor to be there. So she came in maybe like a couple minutes later, but it felt much longer than that. And once she got in, she was like, okay, let's go and start pushing. It took maybe another 10-15 minutes of me pushing to get her out. And after that, they took the placenta out, which honestly, the pain didn't really stop when Freya was out, the pain stopped once the placenta was out. And I was not expecting that. And also, the placenta getting out of me was a completely different experience. Like, it hurt, but I was so relieved that it was done that I didn't care at that point. So I just let them do their thing, and they were pushing on my belly, trying to get it out. But once it was out, like as it came out, I just felt this relief. Like all that pain just went away. And I was not ready for that. But after that was done, I did have some tearing. So I think it was 2 maybe. So it wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best either. So they had a nurse stitch me up, and after that they took care of Freya because she had to be on medicine because they weren't sure if she had an infection or I did, what was happening with the fever, right? So both of us had medication throughout our stay there, which I think we stayed 3 days. And so after we got settled a little bit, we got moved to a different room. And in there, my husband had like this couch that was super hard. So he was missing his bed in the delivery room for the 2 nights that we stayed there. But at some point I just had him be in the bed with me because it was just like I could feel how hard that couch was. So I was just like, okay, let's just sleep here. I did have the nurses take Freya throughout the night so we could sleep and recover. I tried taking a shower. It was the worst thing because I was hooked up to all of these things. And we had Freya during the day, and then at night they would have her and take care of her while we recouped. Because I knew once we got home, that was it. Like, we would be the only thing, like, she would be relying on us for everything. And we wanted to take advantage of the fact that we had nurses there that knew what they were doing so that we could recover some of our energy and start, at least for me, start healing so I could be able to take care of her once we got home. I know not everybody agrees with that, but I'm not gonna waste an opportunity to actually get some rest because once I get home, that is it. Like, we're the only thing that will take care of her. So we took advantage of that, and then I was finally able to eat, which was nice because I was starving and I didn't have any energy left in me. But yeah, it wasn't a very long process once we started. But it just took forever to actually get dilated enough to start that process of giving birth. So I don't know how it worked for you. Like, I couldn't, like, my water didn't break on its own. So that had to be done manually. And there was a lot of things that just didn't happen that they needed to handle so we can move forward. But yeah, that was my experience. It wasn't too bad. Like, after we got out of the hospital and we were home, I didn't really bleed that much afterwards because I had heard all these stories about like how much you bleed for weeks afterwards. I really didn't. My worst bleeding was while we were still in the hospital, and then maybe a couple of days after we got home, but that was it. And so I didn't have that sort of experience where it was really bad. The pain, like, I couldn't really walk properly for a while after that because I was still healing. But other than that, yeah, it was pretty easy in my opinion, because I know I've seen so many videos before going into labor to know that it could be way worse. So I consider myself lucky. And yeah, so that was my story. I would love to hear yours in the comments and let me know how yours went. And if you can talk to each other, like, I don't have to be the intermediate. I want this to be a community, and I want it to be a conversation, and for everybody to share their experience and their stories, so we can hopefully help somebody else maybe find more information, or figure out that anything and every experience is your own, and there's so many different ways that it can go. And I just want people to be aware of that, because it's not just one experience for everybody. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the comments. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, liking this video if you did enjoy it, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.